Aboard a massive spaceship drifting through the endless cosmos lies a lonely old man. He's no ordinary elder, he is the legendary sun god. Watch as he dons his battle robe and places a shining crown on his head. With each powerful beat to his chest, his body grows a foot taller. In the blink of an eye, he transforms into a towering giant, radiating brilliant light from every inch of his body. At precisely noon each day, he performs the same sacred duty. He grips a heavy iron chain, guiding the sun to keep it aligned on its proper course. Then, with a sudden flash, he teleports to the rear of the ship, raises his divine staff, and strikes a battle pose. Harnessing the energy of the sun, he drives away the monstrous beasts of chaos that attempt to invade Earth. A blinding beam of light erupts, blasting the beast back into the dark abyss from whence it came. This is the sacred task the sun god must carry out every single day. But because of this endless duty, he has no time to govern the affairs of Earth himself, so he entrusts that responsibility to his two sons. The two brothers descend to Earth, living among mortals in the land of Egypt. Osiris, the god of life, rules over the fertile lands nourished by the Nile River. Meanwhile, his brother Set, the god of the desert, presides over the harsh, barren wastelands. This imbalance of power fuels Set's growing resentment. He feels cheated, humiliated by the cruel fate that left him with nothing but sand and stone. Then one day, Set sees an opportunity. Osiris is preparing to pass his throne to his son Horus, the god of the sky. A grand coronation ceremony is planned for tomorrow, one that all of Egypt will celebrate. People flood the markets to buy their finest garments, eager to witness this historic moment in style. Among them is Beck, a broke but bold young man desperate to impress his girlfriend. He sneaks into a clothing shop, and while the owner is distracted, he swipes a luxurious dress and bolts home. He hands the dress to his girlfriend, Zaya. As soon as she puts it on, her graceful elegance radiates from within. But while the world prepares for celebration, one figure within the royal palace dozes off. He's soon awakened by his maid. This towering figure is over 4 meters tall, with molten gold flowing through his veins. A warrior who can shift into powerful beast forms at will. This is Horus, the sky god and soon-to-be king. He's spoiled beyond belief. 4 maids attend to him as soon as he opens his eyes. Though the palace is filled with women vying for his favor, his heart belongs to one Hathor, the goddess of love. The next morning, the palace buzzes with excitement for Horus's coronation. Citizens bring lavish gifts, celebrating the rise of a new king. One by one, the gods arrive to pay their respects. First comes Hathor, radiant as ever. Then Nephthys, the goddess of protection, soars in on her mythical phoenix. Thoth, the god of wisdom, presents his latest invention. Just as Osiris begins to crown Horus, Set storms in uninvited and interrupts the ceremony. After a brief exchange, Set presents a horn from a sacred ram and asks Horus to blow it in front of everyone. But the moment he does, a trap is sprung. A battalion of red-clad soldiers swarms the palace. This was never a gift, it was a signal. Set's coup has begun. In full view of the gods, Set strikes down his own brother. He demands absolute obedience. Those who defy him will be enslaved. As his father lies dead, Horus rises and grips his divine staff. He prepares to unleash his most powerful attack with the Eye of Power, but Set's mirrored shield blinds him just in time. Horus shatters the shield with a counterstrike, but Set seems to anticipate every move, forcing Horus on the defensive. With no other choice, Horus taps into his divine form and transforms into the mighty sky god. Set isn't backing down. He too morphs into his beast form, a jackal-headed titan. The two gods take flight, clashing midair in a violent battle. Pillars collapse, the palace crumbles, and terrified citizens scatter. Set's plan was airtight. His soldiers reflect sunlight with their shields, disrupting Horus's divine vision. Unable to harness the eye's full power, Horus is overwhelmed. Set slams him to the ground, pinning him. Then, in a brutal act, Set gouges out Horus's eyes, the very source of his godly strength. Now powerless, Horus is no more than a mortal. As Set prepares to deliver the final blow, Hathor intervenes. She offers herself in exchange for Horus's life. Set accepts. He spares Horus but locks him in the tomb of the old king, banishing him from the world. With Horus out of the picture, Set claims the throne for himself. The gods who try to resist are swiftly defeated. Driven to the edges of the world by Set's ruthless desert army, Hathor can only endure the humiliation and bide her time. Her only hope is to keep Horus alive. Now ruling with unchecked power, Set begins constructing a towering monument to his glory. Exploiting the people, enslaving them to build his sky-piercing tower. Beck, the same young man who once stole a dress, is now among the captured, forced into hard labor. His beloved Zaya is also taken, made to work in the palace. There, she's assigned to manage architectural blueprints for Set's grand construction projects. But Beck hasn't given up. Using his thief's instincts, he sneaks into the palace to find her. Zaya, noble and kind, tells him saving just the two of them isn't enough. Set's tyranny must end for everyone. She believes that if they can recover the missing Eye of Power, Horus can rise again. Only Horus has the strength to overthrow Set and bring peace back to Egypt. From her work, Zaya has learned that tonight, the royal vault will be opened. It's their one chance to slip in and retrieve the eye. She carefully explains the vault's intricate traps and defenses to Beck. At night, Beck sneaks into a carriage transporting treasure. When the treasure is delivered, he successfully slips into the royal vault along with the gold. But to retrieve the Eye of Power, he must pass through 3 deadly traps. One wrong move, and the hungry, restless scorpions below will devour him alive. He lights a torch and slowly inches forward, but the moment his shadow blocks the light, the trap is triggered instantly. The clever thief quickly figures out a solution. He raises the torch above his head, aligning his shadow with his body. The trick works. He narrowly escapes the first trap unharmed. With this experience, Beck becomes even more cautious, but he still accidentally sets off the second trap. A row of statues armed with swords suddenly slash at him. Luckily, Beck is quick and agile, dodging every strike one by one. He makes it through the last slash by just a hair's breadth, but the third trap isn't shown on the map, leaving Beck completely unprepared. He tosses the blueprint aside and takes a risky leap of faith. To his shock, the final floor is made of floating platforms. Beck runs at full speed with everything he's got. Using the last platform, he launches himself into the air and grabs the Eye of Power, but he falls into the vault in the process. He uses the eye's divine glow to drive away the swarm of scorpions. Once he secures it, he rushes to find his girlfriend to share the joy, but the plan had already been leaked. Beck and Zaya are surrounded by palace guards. In the chaos, he uses the eye's light to blind everyone around. Taking the chance, he pulls Zaya onto a carriage and escapes, but an archer takes aim and fires a deadly shot at Zaya. The arrow pierces her heart. She dies instantly in his arms. Beck is overwhelmed with grief as his beloved dies in front of him, but there's no time to mourn. He has to keep moving. Beck makes his way to the tomb where Horus is imprisoned. It turns out he stole the eye to restore Horus's divine power. Only Horus can overthrow Set's brutal rule over Egypt. Beck offers the Eye of Power as a deal. In return, Horus must help bring Zaya back from the underworld. To Horus, a mortal making demands is an insult. The two immediately get into a fight, but with his eyes stolen by Set, Horus lacks both vision and power. He's no match for Beck. Left with no choice, Horus accepts Beck's terms. He pulls out a brazier and sparks a flame with a flick of his hand. Chanting ancient words, he summons a jackal-headed figure holding a staff. This is Anubis, the god of death. Anubis instantly takes Zaya's soul and opens the gates of the underworld. He prepares to lead her into the afterlife, but Beck fiercely objects. As a slave with no wealth, Zaya cannot pass through the final gate. Anubis takes her through the 9 gates of the underworld. It will take 7 full days to reach the last one. Horus places the eye back into his socket, but with only one eye restored, he regains just half of his divine power. He tells Beck that only a king has the authority to demand a soul from the afterlife. To defeat Set and reclaim the throne, he must retrieve the other eye, and he must do it before Zaya reaches the final gate. Meanwhile, a minotaur informs Set that a thief has stolen the Eye of Power. Set immediately orders his men to capture the thief, but he has no idea that Horus already has one eye back. To defeat the god of the desert, they must first destroy the desert itself. As the sun sets, they climb to the top of a mountain. At the summit stands a shimmering gate to the heavens. Horus hopes to ask his grandfather, the sun god, for help, but with only one eye, he cannot transform or fly. He kneels beneath the cosmic archway and prays in silence for strength. Soon, the sun god responds to his prayer. With his blessing, Horus transforms on the spot, becoming a bird-headed warrior with golden wings. He takes Beck and sets off on a cosmic journey. They arrive at a massive ship floating in space. Their mission: seek the aid of Horus's grandfather, the sun god. But the sun god is too busy to greet them. At this hour, he must control the sun's orbit. At the same time, he must use solar energy to repel invading chaos beasts from Earth. After fending off the beasts, he finally notices Horus's arrival. Horus pleads for his help, asking him to stop Set and lend him divine power. But the sun god, unwilling to interfere in family affairs, refuses. Instead, he permits Horus to collect a vial of sacred water from the galaxy. With this sacred water, Horus can extinguish the flames of the desert. Without those flames, Set's power will be greatly weakened. Meanwhile, Set has launched a full-scale assault on the rebel gods. He drives them to the edges of the world. Determined to wipe them out completely, Set flies across the battlefield and arrives at a palace. It's the final stronghold of the goddess of protection, Nephthys. She was once Set's wife, but she turned against him, unable to bear his cruelty. As she spreads her wings to escape, Set grabs her midair and yanks her back. Then, with ruthless force, he cuts off her beloved wings. Elsewhere, Horus and Bek return to Earth with the sacred water, but before they even land, the sun god withdraws his blessing and takes back the power. Just then, the assassins sent by Set arrive. Before Bek can react, he's surrounded by several minotaurs. As the minotaurs begin to rough up the thief, Horus arrives just in time to help. Though his powers aren't fully restored, they're more than enough to deal with these grunts. Horus leaps into the air and drives a spear straight through one of them. Two more minotaurs come in from both sides to trap him, but they've clearly underestimated Horus's combat skills. In the heat of battle, he snatches a giant blade from an enemy and hurls it, slicing through a bullhorn. Another minotaur lunges at him from behind. With a swift spin, Horus uses his enemy's momentum to cleave the beast in two. He follows up with an uppercut that shatters another's horn, then locks him in a chokehold and snaps his spine with a brutal twist. Seeing this, the Minotaur leader drops Bek and challenges Horus to a duel. But before he can land a single blow, Horus pierces through him with his third strike. Unfortunately, Minotaurs are insanely tough. Horus lets his guard down and gets ambushed. He's knocked into a raging river. Without hesitation, Bek dives in after him. He tries to wake Horus, but they're both swept off a cliff by a waterfall. As they plunge downward, Bek screams desperately for him. At the last second, Horus wakes up mid-fall. He throws his spear to slow their descent, narrowly avoiding certain death. Back at the palace, the Minotaurs report their failed mission to Set. Clearly, this wasn't the outcome Set wanted. He pretends to praise them, but as soon as they turn around, he beheads the Minotaur in cold blood. Left with no better option, Set sends his ultimate weapon, the twin snake sisters, to eliminate Horus. He forces the goddess of love to cast a spell to locate Horus's position. She secretly embeds a coded message to warn him. Horus, still on the run, hears her signal. Realizing she's betrayed him, Set grabs a knife and rushes at her. The goddess of love rips off her bracelet and flees, risking her life in the process. Without her bracelet, she's exposed to demonic forces from the underworld. The demons come to claim her life. In agony, she manages to reclaim the bracelet just in time to survive. She knows Horus is in grave danger and must reach him before the Snake Sisters do. But it's too late. The black and white snakes have already found Horus. With only half of his powers restored, Horus is no match for them. The Snake Sisters open their fanged jaws and charge from behind. Just as they're about to catch up, Horus grabs Bek and runs faster. The snakes are not only fast, they also breathe fire. After narrowly dodging a wave of flames, the two hide among ruins to avoid being spotted. Bek comes up with a plan. He runs out and uses himself as bait to draw the snake's attention. Meanwhile, Horus sneaks underneath and aims a fatal blow at the black snake, but her skin is too thick. His weapon can't pierce her. In a desperate move, Horus jams his staff into her throat and holds her down. He tells Bek to lure the white snake next. Horus prepares to strike her from behind. Bek sprints into the temple, using the pillars to increase the distance between them. Horus uses a column as a launch pad, leaps high, and lands on the snake's back. In a flash, he ties the snake's handler to her head. They both plummet off a cliff. Horus barely lands on solid ground at the last second. Before he can even breathe, the ancient temple begins to collapse from the damage. At that moment, the goddess of love arrives at the scene. With just one look, she freezes the giant snake in place. She pulls the divine staff from its mouth and enchants the lone snake to set itself ablaze. Next, they must use the water of life to extinguish the desert fire burning within the pyramid. But to enter the pyramid's core, they must answer the riddle of the Sphinx. To solve it, they seek help from Egypt's greatest mind, the god of wisdom, Thoth. The group treks through a swamp and reaches Thoth's domain. As they enter the grand hall, they're greeted by countless identical versions of the same man. Thoth doesn't trust anyone but himself, so he cloned himself to do all the work. Before Horus can speak, Thoth immediately refuses to help. Thinking quickly, Bek uses reverse psychology to challenge him, and it works. They waste no time and rush to the base of the pyramid. Inside, shifting blocks hide the true entrance. making it impossible to tell which way to go. The path ahead changes direction with the movement of the sandstorm. With no other option, Beck takes a leap of faith. He sprints and jumps, landing safely on a floating platform, with more floating steps ahead. He runs as fast as he can across the crumbling path. At the last moment, he grabs onto a gear and shuts down the sandstorm. Just as they step inside, a terrifying creature rises from beneath the floor. It's the Sphinx. To pass through, they must solve his riddle fail, and they die. Thoth steps forward without fear, ready for the challenge. The question is, I do not exist in the past, but I am always in the future. Thoth answers, order. The Sphinx rises and punches toward them clearly. That was wrong. Thoth tries again. Purity, still wrong. The Sphinx grows increasingly agitated. Horus takes the blows, buying Thoth time to think. Finally, Thoth answers, tomorrow. The Sphinx steps back. Correct. Now armed with the sacred water, Horus prepares to extinguish the source of the desert fire. Suddenly, a massive cage bursts up from the ground. Horus and the goddess of love are trapped inside, unable to escape. It turns out Set, the god of the desert, had been waiting here all along. He ambushes them from behind and kills Thoth, the god of wisdom, taking his powerful brain. Then he snatches the water of life from Beck and pours it onto the ground. Clearly, their plan has completely failed. At the same time, Set reveals a painful truth to Beck. A king has no authority to reclaim a soul from the underworld. Horus was using you all along. Set takes Thoth's brain and leaves the ruins behind. Suddenly, the temple begins to collapse violently. In the chaos, Horus uses all his strength to unlock the cage mechanism. He lifts a giant gear to shield the others. At the last second, the group escapes from the crumbling pyramid, devastated by the betrayal. Beck is heartbroken. Now not only can he not bring Zaya back to life, but she has no wealth to be reborn. The goddess of love is deeply moved by his sincerity. She raises her hands and begins chanting an ancient spell. She summons Anubis, the god of death, to her side. She entrusts her precious bracelet to Anubis and asks him to give it to Zaya. With it, Zaya will finally have the means to be reincarnated. After saying goodbye to Horus, she removes her bracelet and is instantly pulled into the void by demons. A grieving Horus gives the bracelet to Beck, so he can follow Anubis into the underworld and see Zaya one last time. There, a long line of souls waits to be judged for reincarnation. Zaya walks with them through the 9 gates and arrives at the Hall of Judgment. In front of the great door stands a colossal golden scale. But judgment here isn't based on good or evil, it's based on wealth. A rich Egyptian offers all his earthly treasures and is granted rebirth. An old woman steps forward nervously and offers a small ring, but it's as light as a feather. The judge orders her to the stairs, and the next second, she turns to ashes. The poor have no afterlife. Now it's Zaya's turn. She stands tearfully, empty-handed and alone. At the critical moment, Beck arrives just in time with the bracelet. As he places it on the scale, the ground begins to tremble violently. The gate of rebirth is invaded by an unknown creature, shattering the structure. A surge of chaotic energy floods in. Anubis rushes to the stairs and shields them from the magical blast. It turns out this was all Set's doing. To become even stronger, he fused 3 stolen divine relics into himself. Thoth's brain grants him the ancient knowledge of the gods. Osiris's heart gives him the power to rule the world. And with Horus's eye of power, he gains vision across all time and space. Set evolves into the most powerful god to ever walk the earth. He then dons the wings of the goddess of protection and flies into space. There, he lands on the sun god's cosmic ship. But Set's ambition has grown beyond Earth. He now seeks to dethrone the highest god and rule the entire universe. The sun god refuses to bow to his grandson. He removes his battle robe and fortifies his body. Using the power of the sun, he tries to drive Set away, but he doesn't realize Set now wields incredible power. Catching him off guard, Set pierces his chest and steals his solar spear. Then, with one powerful strike, he throws the sun god into a dark abyss, sending him into an endless slumber. With the sun god gone, nothing can hold back the chaos beasts. Through his eye of power, Horus sees Set attack his grandfather. He instantly realizes Set's plan to destroy the earth. There's no time to waste. Horus summons his phoenix chariot and races to stop him. Set returns to Earth. Standing atop his towering monument, he raises the solar staff, calling the chaos beasts to Earth. He plans to destroy both the living world and the afterlife, and become an eternal god. First, he shatters the gate of rebirth in the underworld. Then, he heads to the Nile and devours everything living on Earth. Now, only one god can stop him: Horus, the god of the sky. He and Beck sneak into the colossal tower. The spire rises over 30 million feet tall. Horus begins climbing the exterior wall to reach the top. Set is already there, guiding the chaos beasts, just as Horus prepares to strike from behind. Set spots him. They clash in a life-or-death duel at the peak, but with only half his power. Horus is no match for Set. After just 2 blows, Horus is knocked to the ground. Even his Spear of Life is no match for the sun god's stolen weapon. Every attack is effortlessly countered by Set. Set disarms him, then kicks him to the tower's edge. He pins Horus down, ready to finish him off. At the last second, Beck arrives and saves Horus's life. An enraged Set transforms into a jackal-headed beast and slams Beck against the wall. Beck seizes the chance to grab the Eye of Power from Set's head. Then, risking everything, he throws the eye to Horus. Now Horus faces an impossible choice: take the eye and restore his power, or save his friend who's falling fast. In that moment, Horus finally understands. He gave up his divine powers and chose to rescue Beck, dangling from the edge. Both men are barely hanging on, but Set won't let them escape. He slams the solar staff into the pyramid's peak, melting it with searing heat. Molten gold pours toward them. With no choice, they let go and fall. Mid-air, Horus transforms, spreading his wings and catching Beck in time. He gently sets him down on the ground. Horus now understands his true power doesn't come from the eye. It comes from his will to protect others. With renewed strength, he takes to the skies again and challenges Set. He lures Set inside the tower, avoiding the solar staff's attacks. When Set loses sight of him, Horus strikes from behind. He slams Set against the wall and drives him upward, bursting through the top of the tower. He rips off Set's wings, then he grabs him and crashes down from the sky. As they fall, Set continues to fire solar blasts toward the tower's top. The tower finally crumbles under the strain. At the base, Horus reclaims the solar staff and ends Set's life without mercy. Then he flies into space and returns the staff to his grandfather. Awakened, the sun god takes the staff and returns to Earth. With a single blast of solar energy, he drives the chaos beasts back into the abyss. Balance is finally restored between the worlds of the living and the dead. Horus returns from space to the people. A little girl finds his missing eye and hands it back to him. His love for humankind earns him thunderous cheers from the crowd. He approaches Beck, but before he can thank him, Beck, mortally wounded, passes away. Horus lays his body beside Zaya, preparing to bury them together. But just as grief sets in, a golden light shines behind him. His grandfather, the sun god, appears once more. To thank Horus, he offers him even greater divine power. But Horus declines. He asks only for the lives of the 2 mortals behind him. The sun god grants his wish. Beck and Zaya awaken, brought back from the underworld, and with the people's support, Horus is finally crowned king. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.